makes fun.
We're live
I was
on a
just commenting that my dog is here, so if anyone on the stream hears funny noises, it's just my dog. But yeah,
and my cats are locked out for good reason. Sorry, guys.
yeah, yeah. Too late now. Now
Yeah,
she's here. But how's it going, Ellie?
it's going great. It's going really good. Yeah. I turned 32 this weekend, by the way, so I'm almost 32.
Congrats. Yeah, we're relatively close in age.
Yeah.
I'm 3 years younger. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Cool. Well, so yeah, you flew in ZeroG. Watched all your videos. They were great. Anything in there that I guess like that you wish you had included? Um,
Well,
like
you
yeah,
flew in ZeroG too.
I did. Yeah, yeah,
And you and I had very different responses to the actual parabolas, which I thought was so fascinating that I think it was roughly 9 people in the 6 section at the end and 13 of you guys or whatever still out there. And what, all different ages of people that were affected. So it's different sexes, right? It was very interesting to me to see how the groups split up in different ways because we were sectioned off in the beginning, 2 different zones, but we ultimately ended up in
yeah.
different sections of the flight by the
Well,
end.
something that Nicole told me that I found interesting was that um, they can't determine physiologically what is causing someone's reaction to zero gravity. Like they don't know ahead of time whether or not like there's some sort of gene or some
Yeah.
thing in people that causes it. So they really have no clue.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah,
Well,
9 people is pretty wild, and I think they said that was a lot for
yeah.
a flight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It sounded like a complete anomaly, but you won't know until you're up there.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was worried because they said that not to like drink the night before, but we were watching the Intuitive Machines landing, and Charlie was there, and Charlie used to be a Coors distributor, so
Right.
he was just putting back Coors, and I'm like, well, I'm sitting here with the Moonwalker, I can't not drink with him, so I I had a few beers too, and then before I knew it, I was like a few deep. Like, all right, we'll see how
That's
I do in the morning. But
Yeah, that's one
yeah,
good reason that I actually don't drink at all. I haven't drank since I was 15 years old, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, I'm glad that you guys didn't get affected because as we know, last minute our flight was moved up. It was actually moved up twice, I believe. And ultimately ended up being check-in at 5:45, which
yep.
was I don't think anyone was happy about that.
Yeah, well, it's especially rough because it's like hard to sleep the night before
Yeah,
because you're like thinking
I
about it
didn't
the whole night. You're like, yeah, you didn't get any sleep?
I
Yeah.
mean, maybe like 2 hours, and I actually take prescription medication that makes me tired. I tried to take even more, which probably didn't help, but I was, like, just laying there, like, so, anxious, and yeah, I think sleep would have benefited all of us, but it was still really cool. It's hard to believe it's been almost a month now.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, time flies. So
Yeah,
I guess you got at least the first first few parabolas, and so you did lunar gravity and some zero
yeah.
G parabolas too. Yeah,
So
what did you think?
after the flight, I asked a few people if they liked lunar or zero better. And to my surprise, and maybe your surprise, and people in the audience, most people liked lunar better.
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
agree.
it would be really cool if they could have a lunar focus with maybe 2 0G parabolas, but mostly lunar because I think it's easier for your body to handle. And you also have a little bit more control. And, obviously the service is billed as ZeroG, but it was interesting hearing that I wasn't the only one who preferred lunar. And the first 3 parabolas of our flight were lunar parabolas. And then we went into the ZeroGs. And so the first 3, I was actually able to handle fine. I was like, oh, I actually don't feel sick at all. I really psyched myself out. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
And then we started getting into the zeros. And I think I did 1 or 2 like for real. and then I maybe did, like, 1 or 2 more at most, and I was just holding onto the rope and, like, just trying to stay as still as possible, and then I had to go sit down, and once I sat down, I could not get up again, like, I mentally couldn't do it, and I really wanted the flight to be over, which was it was a bad feeling, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I guess once you're sick and you're just stuck on that seat, you're just being, yeah,
And
like,
it's like, I've
jolted
been
up and down while throwing up. It sounds
that
terrible.
that's the
Yeah.
thing is, like, I've been car sick, I get car sick if I'm not driving, but this was so violent, and you're throwing up in 0 G. Sorry if this is gross. You're throwing up with 2 times your body weight on you in 2 G almost. And then maybe you can't do that anymore, but it's just like this. And the thing too is that, and everyone has a little bit of this. I think almost all of us went to sleep like right after. We had our little toast and our little, gathering, and then I know I went to sleep. So
Yeah.
there's that adrenaline dump because yeah, I mean, it's a rush.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way afterwards. I was, like, just, like, dead. I needed to
Yeah,
take a nap.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree about the lunar gravity. I think that, well, yeah, there's something like when they asked, because they asked us how many parabolas we wanted to do of each, and someone said, well, it's MoonDAO, so maybe we should do more lunar. But in my mind, I was like, well, ZeroG is the cool one, right? That's the one that like is would be best. But there's something about the lunar gravity that like I feel like it's you can control it maybe a
Mhm.
little bit better, and it feels stranger. It like because it's somewhere in between free fall and so I don't know. It's just like that modulation of gravity is like really interesting. Yeah.
There and this again, I'm being authentically honest, and so this might be a little bit of a controversial take, but I spoke to someone who's done 0 G before the flight, and they told me that 0 G is the best feeling in the world aside from falling in love with someone and having them fall back in love with you. And when I was in
That's
0 G, because of that high expectation, I don't wanna say I was underwhelmed, but I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, okay, this is what it feels like." It's not, like, as crazy as I would have expected. It was still,
Hmm.
like, completely memorable, something that you can't, have done any other way other than to fly a 0G right now. We don't have, like, a cool ride that you can do that, right? I mean, the centrifuge is one thing, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like maybe, uh, I don't know, it was different than I expected, and it was crazy, but I think, like, the cabin was a little smaller than I expected. I feel like in the videos, it looks, like, very big,
Mhm.
and I think, one of the things too is it would have been interesting to see if only maybe 4 people were on the flight, you
Yeah.
know? It felt like there was not a whole lot of room.
Yeah. I agree. Well, and I spoke to some of the people at Zero G, and they said that they're looking into maybe like outfitting another plane that might be
Mhm.
larger potentially. There
Yeah.
there's some physics reasons for why it's difficult to do that, but
Yes.
yeah, I think it's kind of like when someone's telling you about a movie you haven't seen yet, and they're like, "This is the best movie of all time. Like, this is insane. It's
Yeah.
gonna change your life." And so you sit down with that expectation, and then you watch it, and you're like, "It was good,"
Right.
but I think, like, erasing that expectation, I'd still well, I'd recommend it just in like and this was I feel like it's hard for people to articulate when they were explaining it to me, and now it's hard for me to articulate it to others, but it's like our whole lives we we feel the presence of gravity. And
Mhm.
so you can try to imagine what you'd feel like without the presence of gravity, but it's kind of like this thing that you just take for granted every single day of your life.
Right.
And I think it hit, especially in the lunar gravity, like, where I was like, "Oh my god, my I just don't like the weight of my body is something that I've been feeling since I was a child,
Right.
and I can't unfeel that." without something like this. I mean, maybe you could do like a roller coaster, but it's not quite the same.
Right.
Um, so I'd still, even just for that like sensation, I'd recommend it. But I mean, it's pretty expensive, so I'm like very grateful for MoonDAO to be able to like help, mitigate some of the costs. But yeah.
Right. It's very expensive, and that was, one of my takeaways in the video is, like, if you know that you're really prone to motion sickness, unless you're, like, super rich, this might end up being disappointing because,
Mhm.
like I said, not only are you sick once you're sick, you're not gonna snap out of it, um, you're also stuck on the flight with all the other paying customers. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, you can't say, "Excuse me, can you stop?" because you're ruining everyone else's fun. But I will say,
Mhm.
yeah, that is like the one takeaway is that it gives you an extreme appreciation for what we're used to, which is gravity. And it would be interesting to see because talking to Doug after, he's like, "You might do fine though, still at the
Yep.
ISS." Being in
Mhm.
space is it they're different. It may seem like it's the same metric, but it's not. And so it would be interesting to see how I fared up in space, but obviously that is a much harder seat to get on a Dragon than on a
Mhm.
zero G flight.
Well, I wish that, if I were zero G, I'd really consider doing the following. I would do an exit interview on everyone that got sick, and before their flights, I'd have them do a bunch of different exercises that might get them sick, and
Mhm.
see how they do on all those exercises, and then try to figure out if there's a correlation between any of those exercises and then them actually getting sick on the flight.
Right.
Because if there was like some really easy like at home tests that you could do that would tell you with like some percent certainty that you will not get sick, then for all of those people that would not get sick, I would 100% guarantee like it's going to be a crazy amazing experience like it was for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
um but for the people that don't do well on those tests, like maybe you should consider not doing it because it's a big expense, and if you're sick for a lot of it, then it's not great.
Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you because, I was a little worried with my video that it would come off as sort of doom and gloom, and mostly negative because I certainly don't want to portray that the whole experience was negative because it wasn't. So you didn't get sick. How would you describe it?
Yeah. um well, yeah, like I said before, it's just hard to articulate. It's just this feeling that you have your whole life that you and the like the weirdest part about zero G is that it feels very natural, but it's an experience that you've never had. So
Hmm.
it's like it feels as though you're going back to some like neutral normal state. And that to me, like at one point what I did is I closed my eyes and I just let myself like float for a while. And then it wasn't until I opened my eyes that I had this realization that in zero gravity, there is no up, down, there is no like left, right. It's just like, like there's this like internal like proprioception, I guess. And there's no external reference in
Right.
terms
And
of
by the way,
direction.
this
Yeah.
is lunar gravity. So just for the folks watching, we're going to play this clip. And it shows you the first three, which are lunar. I'm doing, push ups pretty easily. And so this was, what is
Mhm.
it, 1/6?
Yeah, so here you still have, I guess, some external like frame of reference for
Right.
like up and down. Um, yeah, but there's like, especially in the zero G, like you could close your eyes and you might be spinning, you might be moving, and then by the time you open them, you might be totally upside down, but you don't feel like you're upside down. Like your brain just naturally recognizes, like, okay, down is up is down now. And I think yeah, it's something that's very hard to articulate because like we always have an external up and down frame of reference, but in zero
I
G you just don't. Yeah.
I closed my eyes very briefly to get the kiss moment, and boy, did I not feel good after that. I felt like keeping my eyes open was at least helping me stay somewhat oriented. So I'm very
Mhm.
jealous that you fared so well. Now look at my what this is one of my subscribers, the dude who's flipping a lot. He ended up getting quite sick, and I think part of that is because he started off real strong.
Yep.
And so, they tell you to kind of gradually ease into it. But at this point in the flight, I was doing okay. Um, and so here we are. This is, I think, the first zero. So, movement's getting a little bit less controlled. We have people running into us. Hopefully, your feet don't smell that day. We also had my other friend, Scott, with the Apple Vision Pro. Absolute insanity.
I can't believe he didn't get sick.
I don't
That's
believe
wild.
him. There's no way, dude. Okay, here we are, the kiss of a lifetime, so romantic. I think it's interesting, like, our hair looks like we're underwater, which is kinda cool. And
Yeah.
then at that point, I was like, "Oh, no. I think I
Oh.
might be getting sick." So here we are. I try it again. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of stick to the rope. And they gave you that ginger gum, and I swear, well, I have like really bad acid reflux actually, so I think that
Mhm.
that just like triggered immediate, you know. But here, so I guess what I've done 2 zeros at this point, 2 or 3.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this might be 3 or 4.
You
Yeah.
can
So
see it on
here,
your face a little bit. You're
right. So here I am. I'm a little bit in crisis mode. I'm like, get away from me. These floating bodies. I'm trying to hold it together and I sense it's not going so well. So during this, I might disappear. Yes. So I'm gone now. The flight attendant said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm okay." And then 2 minutes later, I was not okay. I was barfing. But you can still see people. This is again, this now we're in zero, no
Yep.
more lunar, and this is what it looks like. So it's not like, I think in some way you do control your speed by how much you're pushing off and stuff. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to, it's not like you can kind of like choose your adventure here a little bit. But there's my boyfriend above Scott, Apple Vision Pro
Oh,
guy. He's
there
got to
I
be the
am.
only person ever to do that in ZeroG at this point.
I think so. I think he must be the first that just came out.
Oh, and
Oh,
here you are. You
yep.
navigated to Arden
I'm
Lane. So here
upside
we
down.
see.
I'm
So this
just
is when my
being
friend
knocked.
gets sick. You saw him with the barf bag. You saw the flight attendant take him back, and
Yep.
so they cut off, the embarrassing parts. But as you can see, the pack starts thinning out. Survival of the fittest. We got the flag.
Yeah, I tried to take a photo with the flag, but it was not cooperating.
No, but so tell me this. You
Mhm.
literally didn't feel sick at all?
No. Well, I think someone said this. I think it comes from Buzz Aldrin. I think Christina told me the story that Buzz Aldrin has this theory that there's people that are like exocentric, so they take their frame of reference from like the world and like that's how they orient themselves, and then there are people that are egocentric where they their frame of reference is themselves, and so maybe this just proves that I'm an egoist. I'm, very, I'm, I'm egocentric. No, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't feel sick. And yeah, I can't really explain why.
That's
But
so
yeah.
crazy. See, my boyfriend has like a pretty iron stomach, and he really doesn't get sick ever. But he said, I think on like the first zero G, and then like near the end, he was not quite sick, but like kind of also ready for it to be over, which I thought was interesting because nothing phases him. So
Hmm.
it's just a lot for your body to go through, and that's one of the things they tell you is, "Okay, well, we're only doing 15, and so this is still a healthy number that, you're not gonna be like a research astronaut doing 60 in a
Hmm.
sitting," which sounds like if we had kept going, I was like, "I am gonna pass out," and
Oh
I
my
didn't
god.
wanna pass out because that's just scary. So here we are, we have another view, we switched to a different cam here. But someone says, does it feel like a roller coaster? Kind of. And Scott Manley said that too before I did the flight. I interviewed him, and he's like, think about it as the world's largest roller coaster. And it really is. It's
Yeah.
hard because you have 30 seconds on, but you don't have 30 seconds off. You have 30 seconds in a completely different state. And so your body's just like so disoriented. I was really glad that we had those leveling out periods in between the passes, because
Hmm.
without those, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what Scott Manley said it's like, what is it, 15,000 feet in 30 seconds? Like it's just it's the biggest drop in the world, like by far.
Yeah, I think that is correct. I think I thought it went from like 34,000 like 26, but maybe you're right. Maybe it is.
I mean, yeah, it's a 12. What was it?
The
12,000.
interesting thing, and some people have commented on this, I have been afraid of flying at times. I don't like turbulence. I have some irrational fears. And there was something about this flight that I wasn't even thinking about those fears. Which was funny because we were literally nosediving over and over on purpose. And the pilot was also in ZeroG, and
Which is crazy.
I know. So I think in a way it did kind of like help me with my fear of flying a little bit, because I'm like, look at how durable this thing is. And like,
Mhm.
even when we take it and point it at the ground, which thinking about now, I don't like that. But I wasn't even really focused on that, surprisingly. Good, because we don't need the panic of, think I'm gonna die as well in the picture.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, what can be done to get the prices down so that more
Yes.
people can experience it? I think, like, yeah, bigger planes, but I think that there are some physics challenges around, like, how big those engines can be to, like, while doing those maneuvers, and the, like, stresses that the plane can take,
Right.
but,
Right.
yeah, I feel like that could definitely get the price down. Like, you could definitely pack more people, but the experience is worse the more people there
It
are.
is. It is.
Yeah.
And I think part
Mm.
of the motivation for, or maybe lack of motivation to make this fully accessible, is because this is mostly used for research. So
Mhm.
they already have, I mean, who knows what the percentage is, but a majority of their customers are actually, for science. And then you
Totally.
have the people that can afford to go 10 grand on a 2-hour flight. And surprisingly, I've met a lot of those people, but I think that's why there's even just not a lot of stuff on the internet about ZeroG, because most people just don't have this access. Hell, I wouldn't have had this access had it not been for MoonDAO. That's for sure. So it would be nice to, even at 5 grand a flight, I
Yep.
think that would be more, stomachable for people. But um, what is the motivation for ZeroG? And here's the other thing too. They might not have the capability to up the cadence, because we already saw firsthand they have trouble with the airspace. FAA, needs that airspace as well, and it's a lot of airspace that they have to use,
Mhm.
or the pilot problem. So they might not even have enough resources themselves to up the cadence, is my
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, it'd be cool if, like, well, I don't know if this is feasible, but if the FAA could just, grab a section of airspace that's just, like, exclusive to zero G, and, if they get more of those planes and they can operate at a, higher cadence, I wonder how cheap those flights can go. Because I do think there is a lot of value in people experiencing it, beyond just a joyride. It's like, this is the closest 2 day that you can get to experiencing, what it feels like physiologically to be an astronaut.
Right.
So it's I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think it's like this access point that can get more people thinking about, like, oh, this isn't like, it isn't I don't wanna say fake. I mean, I'd still come across those people that are like, "What? This isn't real," because it seems so strange, but, like, that and a normal person can do this, and that it's getting cheaper, and that, this might translate to other types of experiences that are, very unattainable right now. But I think it's like this access point to like, oh, I can actually participate in space.
Yeah.
So, hmm.
Yeah, I saw in like the promo pictures a couple that were dressed as bride and groom. I don't know if they actually got married on the flight, but I was thinking
Yep.
they better know that they don't get sick. That is gonna
Well,
ruin their photo shoot.
I met the person actually that got married in ZeroG. And they're an employee of ZeroG, so they definitely knew that they weren't going to get sick.
Oh, that's
But
so good.
yeah.
I was thinking to myself too, it's interesting as well. One of the flight attendants did get sick that day. So it shows that even if you do it a bunch, I mean, things happen.
Hmm.
And for some reason, our bodies, our conditions, whatever is different every day. But yeah, I just lost
Yeah.
my train of thought. But yeah.
Well, I thought it was really cool. I guess they have a few things, right? They have the Dramamine you can take, the wristwatch that sends like electrical shocks to your vestibular system. But you mentioned something, and it's the same thing that Doug's kid said, which is that the gum made it worse. That like
Yes.
ginger gum.
I said that, and they didn't
Yeah.
believe me. They're like, "No, take more." And I'm like, "No, dude. This is burning my throat right now." And like literally I just,
Hmm.
expelled my dinner. I really think it like it triggered it. And as far as like the relief band, I had that puppy on pretty high.
Hmm.
So, and then I also took 2 non-drowsy Dramamine. I brought that Bonine or whatever. It's a different brand, and someone told me that would be better. And
Hmm.
I ended up taking their Dramamine because I thought, well, they would surely know what's the best. So if I could do it again, I would try a few things differently. I would not eat hibachi and ice cream the night before.
You had hibachi? Oh no.
I know, and blue ice cream, which was still blue. I
Oh.
would get better sleep, which again, that was kind of out of my control, but I would have maybe gotten to Florida a few days before, and tried to adjust. I would, also not use the ginger gum,
Hmm.
and, that's probably about it. Taking my own version of the Dramamine to see if that one actually works better, but I think better sleep would have helped. It's hard to know though. And that's the thing too. I can't necessarily discount these devices and tools because maybe if I didn't have either of them, I would have been screwed on Lunar 1. I don't know. So,
Hmm.
but they did reference the relief bands. They're like, "We'll have those if you need them." And then all of a sudden they wanted everyone to put them on. So that was kind of interesting to me. It was like, "Okay, well which one is it?" You know what I mean? Like, are these really
Hmm.
important, and are people actually quite prone to getting sick? Or is this like an as needed thing? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. Well, yeah, even the flight attendants were getting sick, and you mentioned this, but yeah, there was like a good amount of turbulence and like also kind of a weird flight path. So maybe it was just that specific flight was extra sickening. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I want to see if I can. So Scott Manley, who's awesome, edited the flight path for me of our flight, which I thought
Hmm.
was really interesting to watch. So let me see if I can find it here really quickly.
Yeah, that was a cool animation.
Yeah, I saw him do it for his, and he's like, "Do you have Google Earth?" And I'm like, "No." And so he just did it for me, which I was like, "Thank you. Fly safe." Hello. Shit, what was it called? Sorry, I'm looking in my.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think also is incredible to see Charlie Duke and Zero G just like use it. I mean, obviously this is this isn't crazy for him, but I'm just shocked that at 88 years old, he's just flying around in Zero G, like bouncing around like everyone else.
Yeah.
I was really worried to like knock into him or bump into him. Like I was just like the whole time looking to see like, is he okay? I didn't want this to be like, Charlie Duke dies on MoonDAO flight or
Oh my god.
so I was a bit worried for him, but I think, I was more worried for him than he was for, he was just having a great time. What a legend. Yeah.
And you're basically answering Ruth's question, which was what was it like to fly with Charlie Duke? again, I was shocked at 88. He's doing, well, clearly better than me. And if we want to pop up that flight path, I have the animation ready to show you guys. And, take note of the first three because those are the lunars. And so they're not as pronounced. And then we get into the zeros. So you can see how much longer those are. And then we have a little period of, okay, we're going to level out and help Eliana not feel like she wants to jump out of the plane. And then we're going to go back into the zero Gs. And then we're going to go into these turns, which I don't know about you, but I really couldn't tell when we were turning.
I couldn't tell either. Yeah.
Like, that's very weird. I've
Yeah.
never had that. Okay, so more zeros. And so this is like our 100-mile area or whatever that we're given. Another turn. And I'm thinking, my God, I just want this to be over. If there were a skydiving lesson right now, I would take it. They were asking me at this point, what can we do for you? And I'm crying. I'm like, make it stop. And then right here, they're like, oh, we're done. And I was like, okay.
This is such a cool animation.
Yeah, it's really
who made
good.
this again?
Scott Manley.
Oh, what? That's so
Yes.
nice of him. Wow.
I know. He's like famous.
Yeah.
There's enough time for little old me.
Aw.
It's very helpful because I don't have Google Earth and I don't know if it's a paid membership thing. So, but yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell that the lunar and the zeros look different.
Yeah, I counted the parabolas. It says 15 in total. I thought we
So
were gonna do a little bit more, but maybe because people were sick, they're like, let's
I think
cut it
that's
off.
why. So a little backstory and context for you guys, because they moved our flight up to 5:45, they wanted to, help us out by adding 5 extra parabolas as sort of like a consolation. And then I think they just saw so many people, crying and barfing. They're like, okay, maybe we'll stick, which I was happy with. I'm sure you guys having fun probably wish we would have done the extra 5. I wish that there were a way to after maybe half of the flight, like drop people off and then y'all go back, do your
Yeah.
thing. We've tested to see who can do this. I thought it was interesting too. Doug's son, 14-year-old son, also got sick. And so somewhere on the video there, you can see him being, carried back in the 6th section. And I asked him afterwards, I was like, so both of your parents are astronauts. Does that mean you want to be an astronaut? And he was like, no. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked him, yeah, if the experience made him want to be one more or less, and he said less. So
That's so
I'm
interesting.
sure Doug is a little bit sad about it, maybe, but
He kinda told me, like, I want my son to do, like, whatever he wants and, like, whatever, if he's helping people, that's great. Like, if he's making a difference, like, that's
Mhm.
kinda what I could hope for. But
Good
I
dad.
felt bad for Doug too, because when his son was back there with me and all the other people, you guys are, like, doing the zero G thing, and Doug is just standing there with this such a sad look on his face, just
Aw,
so concerned about his son, and I was like, "Oh, man, he can't even, like, enjoy it." But he's a great father, so,
yeah.
you know
Well, yeah, hats off to NASA. I think that, they are very good. I don't know how to, like, judges of character, like, beyond just, like, technical ability or, like, whether or not someone can do the job of being an astronaut. What I found, talking to Nicole and Doug and Charlie is that they're just, like, good people too,
Yeah, right.
which is, like, yeah. And that's something that struck me a little bit is that in the selection process, you to become an astronaut, it's not just, yeah, what, like, are you competent as an engineer or whatever? You're also like a roommate to all these other people, and you're like in a box and, very far away from Earth. So you really need to get along with all the other people. So I think that they also care a ton about, how people like interact with others. So yeah, they're like great to be around, and they're so open to questions. I was like so shocked that they like were spending so much time answering all everyone's questions and like just being, I don't know. Yeah, hats off to them. I kept asking them like, is this too much? Like, are you guys sure you want to do like, because they were doing dinners with everyone. They hung out like before or after the flight for a long time. Like everyone had a lot of time to like interact with him.
Well, speaking of questions, Mark's Adventures wants to know, have either of you done a skydive? It's a no for me. I haven't bungeed either.
I have done a skydive. Yeah, it was really cool, but I wouldn't say they're very comparable because when you're skydiving, yes, you're in free fall, but you're feeling a massive force of the earth, or not of the earth, sorry, of the air. Like you're just like eating air the whole time. You're just being like, so you're still feeling like forces on your body, even as you're in free fall. So I wouldn't like it sounds like they would be similar, but they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if I would feel sick during skydiving. I don't think I'd feel as sick as I did ZeroG. Would you agree?
Um, yeah, well, skydiving, I guess if you're doing it like for the first time and you're strapped to like an instructor or something like that, you're not like doing a bunch of like twists and turns and flips and all of that. You're kind of just always in the same position. So I think you're less likely to get sick. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, Ross wants to know, does zero G feel graceful or a bit awkward initially? I'll start. I think that because they kind of ease into it with the lunar and because they really emphasize, hey, go slow, start on your feet, find a fixed point on the ceiling during the transitions. Like it was actually a pretty smooth start for me. And I think it's a great thing to start with the lunar. I just wish they would have kept going with lunar.
Yeah, I think at first it was hard. Like my first instinct, and they even told me that this was going to be my first instinct, but I couldn't override it. Was just that like to like kick or
Mhm.
like to swim to try to
Right.
move. And then I realized that does nothing, like absolutely nothing. It just makes you start spinning.
Yes.
Um, so then afterwards, I was trying to like do the like minimal movement or like force in order to like get me to where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. But it was a learning curve. It took me a while to like figure out, okay, if I press this much, I move that much.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
there's Jack being taken
Oh,
back.
yeah. But by the end of it, though, it was pretty graceful. Like you could just, kind of tap and you
Yeah.
would float majestically to the other end. Like
I
as long as you didn't bump into anyone. It was pretty chaotic, especially in the
I
beginning.
mean, look at
Yeah.
this. I'm truly so envious that, like, you were able to enjoy the whole thing. It's like, you know, I I don't wanna sound negative reflecting on my experience because in many ways, obviously, it was positive, but it's such a bummer that you can't really control how you're gonna feel, and so I wish that there were, like, an actual solution because I don't know if the
Mm.
current solutions are that effective.
Yeah.
I wish
Yeah.
I could try it again. Well, a lot of people, they're like, "Well, don't worry, next time," and I'm like, "I don't think I can justify paying 10 grand knowing what I know from my experience,"
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, like if they can solve like some sort of like test that would almost guarantee that you wouldn't get sick, I feel like that would be a game changer. Because
Yeah.
then you know for sure, like, okay, I'm not gonna just spend a bunch of money to sit sick on this
But
flight.
here's the
Yeah.
thing, even with the flight attendant getting sick that day, it might just be conditions of your body that day. It's, like,
Yeah.
really hard to tell even if you know what I mean? You're not, like, guaranteed for good. James wants to know, would you honestly do it again if you could, knowing that you were sick the first time? My answer
Mm.
would be, if I had to pay for it, unfortunately, no. But if I, for some reason, got to do it for free again, or they wanted to do, a motion sickness study on me, I would, but I would try some of those other, tactics to make it better. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's probably not a great answer or a surprising answer, but could I justify paying for it? No.
Mm.
I ain't that loaded. I don't got that
Yeah,
much money.
I'd love to do it again. Personally, I think, yeah, like I don't know if I caught the bug or something, but I do think it's like it was really fun. It was really cool. It's like going on a roller coaster. You want to go again? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny too, like the day after, my boyfriend and I went to Animal Kingdom, and they have a roller coaster. I think it's called Everest or something. And it went up. So we went on it once together. Bad move. Bad move for me. It was only 3 minutes or whatever, but they end up doing loop backwards, and then they're doing corkscrews backwards. And apparently it goes up to 3G in forces, which I was like, that's even more than the ZeroG flight went. And he just went on it over and over at the end of the night when the line is basically gone and you can go over and over. And I'm just like, how do you do that? I'm just like sitting on the sidelines, and gosh, I wanted to, but it is so miserable for me. It is so miserable. And it's just, you're either in the camp of getting sick or you're not. And if you're not, then maybe we
Mm,
seem like wimps, or maybe we seem like we're complaining. But trust me, once you've been there, you don't
mhm.
want to be there anymore.
Yeah, you gotta be more egocentric like me. You gotta yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there is something to that. There is something to, like, the internal reference frame. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Well, David wants to know, do you think weightlessness would be easier on the space station than on the airplane? Most definitely, because you wouldn't have to switch every 30 seconds and go through 2Gs.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were on the space station, presumably you'll be there for a few days. You'll have time to adjust. And the zero-G part, I don't actually think made me sick. I think it was that transition in the 2G. I really don't actually think it was zero-G's fault, the zero gravity portion. But I think going from what's disorienting to all that pressure and just weight, and like, I think the transitions mess me up the most.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Nicole and Doug were saying that, uh, there there are people that do get sick when they first go up to the ISS, but usually after a couple of days, they're totally fine and their body adjusts and just kind of, like, resets to a new normal.
Right.
So, yeah, I think and they were also saying that there is very little correlation between people getting sick on the zero-G flight, 'cause I I think as part of training, the astronauts do 1 flight. It's not like they're doing it all the time too, they just do 1. And then, the people that got sick on the zero-G flight, some of them didn't get sick on the ISS and vice versa, some of the people that were fine, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's hard, but it sounds like people just get used to it over time. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if I could go to space, like, I would love to go, especially like even tomorrow. If I could go on a dragon and like do a report in space because for some reason they wanted me to, I would do it. I'd feel safe. That'd be really cool. But uh let's see. Let's see. Ross says, oh, sorry. I'm skipping the questions. Juan wants to know, congrats on your experience. How long was the entire flight? It was about 2 hours. It's about 2 hours. So
Mhm.
the actual like parabola part was what, 35 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, 'cause we had a good amount of time just flying into the airspace and then flying back. That was
Yeah, we
probably
had to
an
fly. I
hour.
mean, we started in Orlando and we flew all the way across Florida into the Gulf, basically.
Mhm.
Um, Ross wants to know, do you believe there's a psychology to believing that you won't get sick in zero-G? Can this self-belief help? Well, I did anticipate that I would get sick for the many, 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 many months leading up to it. But during the morning of, I had a new attitude and I was like, it's going to be fine. I'm going to do great. And particularly in the first 3 lunars, I was like, I psyched myself out. I can do this. So I actually did change my mindset during it, and that only lasted for so long.
Do you think that, like, once you started to feel sick, that was, like, like, self-reinforcing thing? You're like, "Oh my god, I'm getting sick," and then it just kind of, like, started to get worse because you psyched yourself out?
I
I
think,
don't know.
well, it is interesting to me that, because they had us do hand signals. So,
Mhm.
okay, they would come around, how's everyone doing? Thumbs up for good, self explanatory. this for I'm not sure, and then thumbs down. And so when the flight attendant came over to me, I was still on the, willy-nilly, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
And so I thought that I was just doing sitting back there as a precautionary thing. And I think the ginger gum and also hearing everyone else, eh, I think also was like, that's a triggering noise. It really is. And
Yeah.
like, everyone's doing that around you. And so, like, I certainly didn't want to do that, but it was totally involuntary. And then once that happened, I was I'm not getting back up. I
Mm.
can't. And so you're strapping your seatbelt in so that at least during the ZeroG, you're maybe hopping up this much instead of, and that was the interesting thing about the seats that I noticed when we first got on the plane. They went back quite far. And I was like, these seats are like not very sturdy. They really recline. And now I know why. Because they have to recline so that when you're in 2G, you can just hope it's over.
Oof.
It's such a bummer,
Mm.
I think people do. They're like, "We're really sorry it didn't go well for you." And I really I'm sorry to be like negative about it, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So I really wish that I hadn't have gotten sick, but maybe in my lifetime they'll actually find a real cure. It's an interesting, I'd like to do a follow-up video on like the space medicine behind this and how they're trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Mhm. 'Cause they don't have it covered. It kinda reminds me too of, like, altitude sickness, that can be a very hard thing to predict as well if you're a mountaineer or something,
Yeah.
and again, if you're on a mountain and you start to get sick, you cannot power through it. You should not
Mhm.
keep going. Like, so it's mental to a point. The body definitely takes over, and you can't really, mind over matter certain things.
Yeah. Well, from I guess, from experience, maybe drinking 4 beers before helps. That's I mean,
I
Charlie
don't
did it.
drink,
I d
so
Okay, yeah, maybe. And then I think for altitude sickness, sometimes they'll give, like, coca leaves, you can put that and make, like, tea out of coca leaves,
hmm,
which is also the precursor to cocaine, so maybe maybe alcohol and cocaine, that's the way around it, yeah.
I like the Elon quote, "Let's put the Coke back in Coca-Cola."
Yeah. All the astronauts need to do cocaine, no.
I did drink a 0-calorie Monster that morning because I
Mm,
I was dragging ass. I was so tired,
mhm,
and I got, like, 2 hours of sleep. I was like, "This is gonna
yeah,
be a wild ride," and then after, like, I'm so bummed because I got those interviews with Doug Hurley, like, on
mhm,
the first crewed SpaceX mission. That's incredible.
yep,
Nicole Stott and Charlie Duke, one of the last surviving Apollo moonwalkers. That video has like 10,000 views. And
mm.
I had to like fight. I wanted to go to the room so bad. And again, oh, poor me. I just went to zero, but I was like, I was so tired.
No, you're a trooper.
I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
was exhausted afterwards,
yeah,
and I didn't even throw up, so that's like
yeah.
yeah,
I know.
you powered through it, yeah.
I had like puke on my suit, and I'm like,
Oh,
so anyway, watch my video. It was so good. I really think it was good. The first
yeah.
one too with the astronauts. The people that watched it said they really liked it. So
No, it was great, yeah, like, I think that, well, I also need to plug my own video. I did a little interview with Charlie Duke too, and it was amazing. I think it also has, like, 200 views or whatever, but,
I think it's
um,
so valuable to talk to him, while he's still here. I mean,
yeah.
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he's so lucid, like, he recalls everything in very, like, precise detail, which is really impressive. And then, yeah, he's got some, like, great life lessons, like, he went to the moon, when he was 37 years old, so, like, he has a lifetime of experience after that too, that is,
Yeah.
like, really interesting too, like, it's not just going, it's also then, like, integrating, like, that experience into your life. Like, I went to the moon, and now he's only one of 4 people that are still alive that walked on the moon, and that number's just been decreasing.
Well, and you know what's interesting too, by the way, Jim just said he missed the interview with Doug Hurley. I put it in the comments, so it's a really good interview. I'm not just saying that. I'm not BSing.
Mhm.
Did we do Mars Gravity 2? We did not. But you just made me think of another thing. I put out that video with my interview with Charlie Duke, and I don't know if you've seen any of this too, but boy, did it bring out another side of the internet. It
Hmm.
brought out dim moon conspiracy, the
Mhm.
moon conspiracy theorists. We did not land on the moon. That is CGI. That is fake, and it never happened. And I can't believe you'd be propagating this information. So I put out that interview, and a lot of people like are hating on him, you know, this incredible 88-year-old man who's still doing zero G, saying that he's a liar and, you know, he's really trained to read those lines. And it made me think like it must be so interesting because I'm sure that there were some part of the population during that time that maybe were a doubter or, you know, they
Mhm.
denied it. But there wasn't this aspect of social media where they could get nasty and they could, you know, comment mean things.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting, like, boy, have the times changed, and that there's a lot of people in denial about it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably preaching to the choir a little bit. I don't think people listening to this stream are necessarily going to be like moon landing conspiracists or deniers.
You never know.
But I actually have good friends that and it sounds crazy, like really really smart people, like people I don't consider to be dumb by any means. That think we never went to the moon, or that even though the Earth is flat, and I'm like, I try to present a lot of information because there's a lot of it out there. Like just tons and tons of people that worked on these programs, and just even like basic things like, okay, how do satellites work? How does and just going into the details of all of these like things. It can take time, but I still have not been able to convert my friend, despite a lot of effort trying. I think it's really hard once you take on a position to be presented with information to the contrary, and then to it takes a very um, like it takes a very open mind to admit that you're wrong about something. And I think once you kind of dig your heels in and you're like, no, and it becomes part of your identity, and like it's very difficult to get those people to just like admit that, like, oh, look at this irrefutable evidence, and they have to come up with all these mental gymnastics for why it's just not true.
Well, it would
But
be
yeah.
one of the biggest and hardest to keep secrets among the largest group of people that worked
Hmm.
on it. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and this isn't to say, like, there's tons of conspiracy theories out there that are true.
Yeah, right.
Like, and so I think this only gives more fuel to the flame that, like, okay, all conspiracy theories are true. And I think that it requires some discernment between, there's going to be some things that the official narrative is just not true. But then there are others, like, it's not like everything is a conspiracy or everything is true. You have to kind of think about things. And yeah, I think something that might be like uh, a sign that you're not on the right track is whether, when presented with new evidence, do you need to come up with new like variables and new theories and new things, and it just becomes more and more tangled.
Hmm.
Or does it get simple? There's like this Occam's razor type thing, like,
Right.
if the simplest explanation is usually true. And then another thing too is lies compound on themselves over time. So if you tell a lie, and then people keep asking you about it, it usually will lead to more lies, and so
Mhm.
the lie will become bigger and bigger over time. And so truth, like, comes out over time. Like, time
Right.
is the basically the variable that will usually determine what narrative is correct or not. And it's been 50 years, and not the Russians, not any of the, moon landing conspiracy theorists have been able to prove that we didn't go. So it's like this is either the best kept secret of all time, um, and I think there's also, I mean, there's certain things that the space community does need to admit, and that's like some of the footage was like there were overzealous like PR people in NASA or whatever that wanted to like show off, and so there were some things that like you look at it and you're like, that isn't quite, that doesn't quite make sense. And then that just but and it's sad. It's sad that like that happened, because it just kind of feeds into this like other minds. But anyways, I could go on about this because I literally, after filming this thing with Charlie Duke, some of my close friends were like, no, it's fake, right? I'm like, and I had this like very long debate with them. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I can understand, I do think we went to the moon. Elon Musk thinks we went to the moon. A lot of people do. But I do think that it is almost inexcusable that we haven't been back in so long. That
Yeah.
part, I think you're allowed to be a little bit frustrated by, but saying that we never went is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Check
Well,
your
I
scoop.
think, yeah, it like that also feeds into the narrative. And the reason that we haven't gone back isn't that we don't have the technical capabilities. It's just that we don't have the funding. So NASA is government. So it's basically we like the people in charge of the government. Just decided that they didn't want to continue funding these missions.
Yeah,
So it's a political problem more than anything, and
right.
that's what MoonDAO is trying to solve for at the end of the day. But yeah, so hopefully we can help accelerate some of the progress because there's really nothing holding us back from like the technology has just gotten better and better. Just we need more money because it's very expensive. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, does anyone think this background, does it look real behind me? Does it actually look like I'm sitting in front of a picture? Or can you tell it's fake?
Is that supposed to be the Intuitive Machines lander
No, it's
or?
supposed to be
Oh,
Hoppy, and
oh, I see it.
like
Mhm.
a it's like a picture in an art gallery actually at Rocket Ranch, but I didn't know what green screen background to use. So I'm just curious if it looks real. I kind of think it does. Do you?
I couldn't tell it was a green screen until you mentioned that.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Pierce said, I didn't notice it was fake. Well, I guess not
hmm.
everything is true that you see.
Moon
Um,
landing conspiracy theorists.
Meanwhile, I'm in a covert box right now. I'm glad it looks good. It's kind of a random one. I had to pick something fast. I feel like I'm starting to put together my office. This is some new lighting I have. I don't know if it's set correctly. I don't know what I'm doing. This is actually not my most preferred way of content here. I like being out in the field, which by the way, for any loyal fans that are watching, on April 4th, I will be interviewing Tom Mueller, the SpaceX engineer, the designer of the Merlin engine. So big deal. You guys watch that video on my channel. It has over 100,000 views, but I'll be interviewing him in person, actually in Manhattan Beach, where I grew up, at Impulse Space, which is his company. So if you have any questions for Tom, and I'll be making a post about this, but that is something to look forward to. I also might have another giant interview in the works. So
Hmm.
no conspiracy, no cap.
Interesting. Well, yeah, Tom Mueller is a legend, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking forward to this potential big interview. Yeah.
Yeah. Can anyone guess who it is?
Hmm.
Sometimes I like to drop information later in the stream. I'm like, if you guys made it an hour in and you're watching, not a lot of people are watching, but are there any more questions about ZeroG, about maybe even MoonDAO? This is incredible that you guys have now sent one YouTuber to space, Kobe Cotton, dude,
Hmm.
perfect. One YouTuber on a ZeroG flight, myself,
Hmm.
and then also Anastasia, who was there for research. And you tell me, have you released yet who won the raffle? The other
So,
4?
we've got big news, that we won't be telling people just yet, but on the 27th, so Wednesday the 27th at 4 p.m., we're gonna be announcing, our second Blue Origin astronaut. So and this one won't be, a YouTuber, this will be, is a random sortition. So, basically, everyone put in like a chance. You can think of it like putting your name in a hat, and then we
Yeah,
randomly
yeah.
selected between all of them. So we're going to announce the winner soon in a
Okay.
week.
Can we get any hint?
Mm, no, you'll have to tune in.
Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Wednesday the 27th at 4 p.m. Yeah, we do town halls every week, and then yeah, we're gonna I think we're gonna do an interview with the winner on X. So yeah, we'll post a link soon.
When will the launch be?
We don't know yet. We
Roughly.
yeah. Well, it depends on Blue Origin. So they're you know they haven't told us their schedule yet. Yeah.
If could I maybe cover it potentially?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
That'd be super sick.
Yeah, we can bring last time we brought a few people from MoonDAO to actually watch the launch in person. So yeah, we should be able to swing it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to cover it, from your perspective and, like, just interview you guys. I don't in Dude Perfect's video, were you guys really even interviewed? Not really.
no, we weren't interviewed.
There with the flag in the background at the end.
Yeah, yeah, we had a little bit of a feature, but yeah, not too much.
Okay, well, we'll make it we'll do it bigger and better.
Yeah. I see a question from Voider. What's the vision of MoonDAO and what's the minimum cost of space tourism? Um, so the vision of MoonDAO is basically to try to accelerate development of like the first settlement off of Earth is a huge deal. It's like the inflection point in human civilization and becoming a you know planet species. But yeah, we're going to the moon before we go to Mars, and so the moon is really going to be this first kind of like testing ground for long-term presence of humans in space. And so MoonDAO is just kind of impatient, I guess. It's been 50 years since the U.S. like Intuitive Machines, the landing that happened a month ago was the first time that the U.S. has landed anything on the moon in over 50 years. And the only thing really, I guess, stopping us, there's no technological reason. It's literally just the will, and people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have really pushed the frontier, or I mean, especially Elon with Starship, and now with New Glenn. Like there's just massive developments, but right now there's like they aren't the only companies that are working on space. There's hundreds of commercial companies, but the thing is they also have like hundreds or thousands of NDAs between all of them because they're competing, right? So they all want to keep an edge over their competitors, and so we want to kind of try to strike this balance between competition and collaboration between all of these space companies, and allow them to basically have a forum and a platform to coordinate with one another. And so that's what MoonDAO is trying to achieve is basically uh, like getting all of the big players in space to work together, and then not only that, but they also have individuals, so individual citizens participate uh, in like what these settlements look like. So um, you don't have to just be a billion-dollar company that's funded by NASA in order to participate in this really exciting future, you can actually enter into the conversation and either be hired by some of these companies, or do bounties for them, support them, help them with promotion. There's a million ways that people can get involved in helping. So that's kind of the MoonDAO pitch in a nutshell. But and I hope that people consider joining as citizens. Yeah. If you go to moondao.com, you'll see more information on how to join. And yeah, the second part of the question was like, what is the minimum cost for space tourism? There's a great analysis that was done. Someone posted on Twitter where they basically took Starship and they were like, okay, from first principles, what will it cost in terms of like materials and fuel, and how many people can you pack into these things? And what they basically found was that you can get the price down to like $40,000 per person, which sounds like a lot, but it's less than the cost of college tuition. Like almost everyone in the United States goes through like that amount of cost in order to like have economic opportunity throughout their lifetime. And my bet is that the economic opportunity of creating these new settlements and just the amount of materials that are out there. If I think that the next trillionaire will probably be whoever figures out how to mine in space and then bring those like precious metals back to Earth. So I think the economic opportunities out in space are going to be really huge. So the cost just being like $50,000 is, I think, enough to get a lot of people to start exploring. So yeah.
Very thorough answer.
Yeah. Sorry if it's sometimes people have said that I'm a little bit dense in like the amount of information I throw out there, but yeah, just trying to be precise. Yeah.
No. Now, did you guys decide already if you're going to do another ZeroG flight?
We haven't decided yet, so that's actually going to be in the hands of the community. So the treasury that we have at MoonDAO, like that's all controlled by the token holders. So if they want to do another flight, it's up to them.
So you're
We're
not
gonna
the overlord,
no,
fidgeting your fingers,
no, and
pulling your mustache.
well, that's also like part of what MoonDAO is trying to achieve is that like we don't want anyone individual to be like the emperor of space or like the CEO of like a planet. So, ideally, this is also an opportunity to kind of like uh, innovate on governance, and that's where a lot of the DAO stuff comes in. But yeah, so we're actually going to be filling out a final report to the community on like the finances of the project and the results of it, and so those are going to be measured, against the initial goals and objectives of the project. And so, depending on how that final accounting goes, I think it was pretty good overall. I think MoonDAO got a pretty good return on investment for the flight, so maybe they'll keep wanting to do it, but it'll be up to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys, have obviously another raffle that people can win, I think it was an incredible opportunity, and I am very
Mhm.
grateful. So,
Well, something that's for sure is that we've got a little link on our app, that's just like a contact form if you're interested in doing a ZeroG flight, and that's been on fire since our first flight. Like, it's like, yeah, we're getting a bunch of people every day that are like, "I'm interested." So, maybe. And the hardest part was honestly just trying to like sell the seats,
yeah.
because I had never flown in ZeroG, so it's very hard for me as someone who's never done it to be like, "Oh yeah, you should totally do this. It's totally worth it." So I wasn't a good salesman there, but
Well, I was
yeah,
able to sell a few seats. That was nice.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
shocked. I was like, because they were to my subscribers, and I was like, "Wow, you guys can afford this?"
yeah,
It was so weird. But I mean,
yeah,
it was awesome, and they were able to save money actually on the flight too by
mhm,
buying through my code. So,
yeah.
um,
Well,
yeah,
one thing is I don't want to be like a ZeroG salesman. Like I think I've got more important stuff that I want to get done within
yeah,
MoonDAO. But that's not to say that the ZeroG flights aren't important or interesting. It's just I'd personally focus my own attention and energy on other things that MoonDAO is working on that I think are really, really exciting.
Right.
Um, but that being said, if we can tie in ZeroG with, we're also talking about doing analog astronaut missions. So for those that don't know, that's like where you basically simulate a mission. So you do like a Mars environment. So there are different parts of Earth that are like very similar to Mars in terms of like the heat and and you basically live inside of a capsule and you like pretend and you simulate being an astronaut, and that's actually very, very useful to researchers when they're trying to figure out
Well,
what it looks like to actually be on the surface. So
I made a video recently about the Chapia mission, so the second Mars analog, and I wonder when that deadline. When was that deadline? Let me
hmm.
look. That again also got like no views, but
Well, what we'd like to do is maybe take analog missions, zero gravity flights, and
yeah.
other things that we can do like that to kind of develop like basically like a MoonDAO astronaut program where like you're in the top 0.1% of individuals that are ready to go to space. Like you've done zero gravity flights, you've done simulated environment, like, and so I think that could be something that's like interesting to people and could get them ready to potentially go to the moon or Mars when that opportunity becomes more available.
Well, and I just looked again, the deadline to apply for this Martian mission is April 2nd. So I put that in the comments, and maybe that's something you guys are interested in. I know someone personally who has applied, and I think you do have to have some qualifications, but it might be up your alley.
Are you gonna apply?
I don't have the qualifications
Oh,
actually. I think that
interesting.
so let me check it out. Um, so they're looking for healthy, motivated US citizens or permanent residents, non-smokers, 30 to 55 years old, proficient in English, and
Mm,
then crew selection will follow an additional standard NASA criteria for astronaut candidate applicants. So this is where I fall short. A master's degree in a STEM field like engineering, mathematics, biological, physical, or computer science from an accredited institution with at least 2 years of professional STEM experience or a minimum of 1,000 hours piloting an aircraft is required. Can
interesting.
which I actually take issue with this.
Hmm.
This is an analog. I think this is the time that you might want to consider having a reporter,
Hmm.
having an artist. This is what they're doing with Dear Moon. And they actually can make it happen here because it's an analog. It's still on Earth. So I
Yeah.
actually think this additional standard NASA criteria is kind of weird the more I think about it.
Well, think about like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos both wouldn't meet those criteria. Neither of them have a master's,
Right.
and a lot of the early Apollo astronauts just had bachelor's degrees too.
But that's why I
Uh,
think, especially when
so,
we think, well, what are we only sending our most trained people to Mars? Are we only
mhm.
wanting our most trained people to like be Martian? So I think it is a little strange to have that. I feel like you would learn more about the actual living conditions by having people from all walks of life.
Yeah, and like I mean, like me personally, like I did two engineering degrees, but I didn't do my master's because I got a job out of college that was I couldn't really
Yeah,
turn down. And so, like, it's like,
that's a steep
does that mean
requirement.
yeah, do you have to have a master's? I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
it
if that's
appears that totally screwed up the video that I did on this. I just let people know that they could apply. I should have taken the controversial take and I should have said, this is BS. This is,
Yeah,
as we have people in the comments, too elitist. Why the master's degree? Appear they want to get followers with a title. It is
mm,
kind of crazy. Are we trying to make this happen for everyone? And why
yeah.
would you not take the opportunity when we're actually here on Earth? I know it's supposed to be like as simulated as possible, but come on.
Some of the smartest people I know, dropped out in high school
Oh,
and,
totally.
college. A ton
Yeah.
of people, it's not, it isn't a useful criteria to judge someone, and their
Yes.
intellect. Yeah.
Yes. Hantronic says regular people need to be allowed to do Chapia type research. Other people have talents too. Being a pilot isn't everything. That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very
It, I don't know.
So to answer your
Well,
question,
MoonDAO's analog astronaut program will not have that criteria. We will not
yeah.
have that.
Well, if you need a
Yeah.
reporter,
Yeah.
although
They
that's the other thing too. This is a year-long mission. I don't want to do that.
Mhm, mhm.
No.
Yeah. What's the movie? I think it was Matt Damon. Maybe someone wrote
The
this in the
Martian?
comments. Or The Martian, where yeah, the guy who had like 3 PhDs, like dies immediately on the mission. He's just, an egghead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has no practical experience. Do we just want eggheads on on Mars? Yeah.
Yeah, I just that is quite almost prejudice. It's like, why are those people qualified? That's interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
really think about that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's HR looking for a cheap way to screen out non-persistent people,
Yep.
according to
That's
Charlie. Okay,
definitely it. They probably just have a lot of applications. They're just like, let's
yeah.
thin
Well, with
out the
the
crowd.
masters, you're not gonna have any. How long will the MoonDAO analog mission be?
So yeah, I mean, this is actually in ideation right now. So MoonDAO's got in our Discord. If you go to discord.gg/MoonDAO, um, anyone can post basically proposals. And so right now, someone created a proposal for a MoonDAO analog mission, and we're still figuring out the details of it. So we're figuring out the budget around it. We're figuring out, how we're going to qualify people. All of that, all of those are open questions. So if you've got thoughts on that, definitely join the Discord.
Well, that's what I kind of want to ask Elon is how are you guys going to select the first? I mean, you've talked about, okay, a lot of people are going to die going to Mars. So have to be willing to die. But like, how are you? I think there's going to be a long list of people that want to go.
I
How
hope
are
not
you
many
going to,
people die.
what?
I hope I hope that's not the thing. I hope that most people don't die when
Of course,
that'd be
we
very
all hope
bad
that,
PR.
but he's a realist and he's,
Yeah,
on record saying like it's going to be dangerous. People are going to die, and so
yeah,
these first few missions, you shouldn't go on it thinking that this is space tourism.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
most of the crew of a lot of Magellan's circumnavigation of the world, the majority of that crew died. But the one, still worth it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know if he's actually asked that like specific question.
Whether he would go, he said, I
No,
think
no,
something like he doesn't want to die on impact.
not whether he would go.
Yeah.
How is he going to narrow down the list
Hmm.
of all the people that want to go?
Yeah. I guess so far, it's been either NASA astronauts or people that have paid, right? Like Dear Moon mission. Oh, well, yeah, I guess with Dear Moon, there's I forget his name, the Japanese billionaire that paid for the whole thing. And
Mhm.
then he did like you know, application process and picked a bunch of different artists and, different people from all walks of life. I think he did it very well. The guy from I'm sorry, I should know his name, but I'm blanking on it. But the Dear Moon mission is really cool.
I'm blanking on it too. Hold on. Dear Moon Japanese billionaire, which I have something to say about that in a second.
Yeah,
Uh Yusaku Mazawa. Does that sound
that
right?
sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah.
Mizawa.
Yes. I don't know how to
Um,
pronounce it, but
I am going to Japan in like 2 weeks.
that's awesome. We're in
So
Japan.
I'm gonna start off in Tokyo and then we are going to basically see how long we want to stay in Tokyo. We're there for like almost 2 weeks. So maybe we want to spend like 6 days in Tokyo. Maybe we want to spend 3 days and go. For sure, we want to go to like Kyoto,
Mhm.
um, Nara,
Mhm.
potentially, you know, hopefully the bullet trains are good enough to get us everywhere we want to go. I feel like it's not enough time, but I'm very excited for that. I'm going to try to check out JAXA while I'm there. And
Yeah.
I just think the whole experience, I've never had that much of a culture shock. That I went to Europe last summer, but that's not really a culture shock. It's cool. And it's, there's a lot more history and like older buildings and, Rome. But I think being like in Japan is going to be very different.
Yeah. No, it yeah, I'm jealous. Japan is awesome. You should also check out iSpace while you're there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Have
Mhm.
you been there to Japan?
Yes, once, but I didn't get to ride the bullet trains. That's like one of my like I really wish I had. I hear they're like incredible. They're like maglev. It's like so advanced. I'm just
Yeah.
like meanwhile California it takes like billions and billions of dollars to not lay one. But like I think yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go on a whole rant here, but I'm just like can't believe it. The
Yeah.
state that we're in here.
How long were you there?
Just like a week. Yeah.
Oh, why didn't you take a bullet train?
Tokyo is huge, so there's just like so much to do. There's so many little neighborhoods, and yeah. I wish we'd stayed longer, but yeah.
So you're saying that we might end up spending quite a few days in Tokyo.
I don't think that you can see all of Tokyo in 2 weeks if you wanted to. You'd have to go crazy. There's just so it's a mega city. It's huge. So, but that said, I think I wish I'd taken the bullet train. So you should do that.
Oh my God. It's like so surreal.
Hmm.
That's happening. And then I'm gonna interview Tom Mueller in LA before that. And then I might have this crazy interview this week. Like
You deserve it.
crazy interview.
Uh,
So and I
Spoilers.
turned
Yeah.
32 on Sunday. So you guys, everyone, cross your fingers and think good thoughts.
Yeah, well, I think you're extremely deserving of all these good things. Yeah, you've been
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, like just very very persistent and like yeah, like I don't know, just but I've been following you now for a while, so it's like really awesome to see like your channel grow and yeah, you've gone through hardship and overcome it like multiple times and so yeah, you're very deserving of it. Yeah.
It's crazy to think that just a year ago, I was lying in bed using a walker and my femur was broken, with a new rod in it. And I was trying to regrow my bone and, heal and get my knee able to bend and like all these crazy things that we take for granted. And then here I am, in just such a better place. And I have to be grateful for these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're a trooper. You interviewed May and Kimball like while your leg was broken, and then even after throwing up on the ZeroG flight, you still interviewed Doug and Nicole and Charlie. So like, you're not letting anything hold you back. So.
I told everyone, I was like, I'm not missing the first Starship launch for anything. And then I broke my leg, but I still had to go down there. And boy, it was worth it.
Mhm.
And I just saw the third one, by the way. So I've been fortunate enough to see all three launches in person. And this one was just, I mean, God, it went so well for so long. I was like, holy shit, we're like
Yeah.
49 minutes into the flight. We're seeing these crazy plasma views through Starlink. I mean, it's like, this was really a phenomenal flight.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
The like, yeah, it's shocking like to see those sort of like views and go like
Yes.
this is real, this is like a skyscraper sized object. Is, like yeah, and the views especially from like Mexico where you can like see it super like
I know. Those people, I'm
close. Yeah.
sorry. That's crazy. I'm not going that close. There's an exclusion zone for a reason, folks.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean it's cool shots.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is worth
No,
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, it would be cool to go, but I don't know. It's scary to me.
Hmm.
It's scary. It's just so close. Anything can happen, dude.
Yep.
If If something happened on the pad, like, and you're that close,
Yep.
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, it's like
Good
a
luck.
I wonder, like, how much TNT like, what's the equivalent? Like, how big of an explosion would that be if it exploded on the pad? Yeah,
Big.
it's like almost
Was this
nuclear.
launched as loud? It was not. I was surprised by that. It definitely wasn't as loud. And as far as, like, the sonic booms, didn't hear them.
Really?
On the second one, I was, like, shuddering. I got, like, scared by them, and this
Hmm.
one, I think it was so windy, even still.
Oh,
They were and that was, like, we thought it was gonna be Friday because it was so windy, but they ended up, doing it, so
interesting.
worked out.
Hmm. I
But,
guess, yeah, I never thought about that. The wind would affect the sonic boom.
it was super strange, and it
Hmm.
was the first launch that my boyfriend has ever seen, and so I wanted him to, see all of it. I mean, granted, it was great that he got to see Starship, but, yeah, the sonic booms, I did not hear him,
Hmm.
so it's kinda weird, but it was still beautiful. I was hoping that it would launch, like, right as they opened the window. It was supposed to be 7, and it would have been dark, but they ended up launching
Mhm.
at 8:25, and it was definitely light by then.
Yeah. Well, one of your subscribers has, a place, down there in Brownsville, um, that's really close, and
In Brownsville or in
or
South Padre Island? Port Isabel? Which one?
I actually don't know. I
Is it the
thought
Star B&B?
y I don't know if he's calling it Star B&B. I think he's got another name, but he's got basically, like, 24-hour, recordings of, Starship. Um,
Oh,
yeah. I feel like it's called, like I don't know, I need to look this up, but yeah, he's got an awesome place down there. I think John Cider. Yeah.
John Cider. Okay, I haven't seen his place.
Mhm.
I was like, "Who are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I know a lot of people with a lot of places and a lot of things in the real estate world.
Hmm. Yeah, but yeah, he's got like a 24-hour, stream of Starbase, so
Oh,
it's pretty cool.
but, like, broadcast where?
I think on
Or is it
Discord.
not?
I don't know, but yeah, either way, yeah, it's
Oh,
really cool.
I
I
should go
I've
check.
been wanting to, like, go down there and stay at his place just to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna know about it too. That is pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was on the flight too. And I don't think he got sick.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I think he did pretty well. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's well, 9 people you said 9 people got sick? Insane.
Like 8 or 9, yeah. It was
So
nuts.
that's I guess counting the crew and the attendants, that's like maybe like a quarter of the flight. Yeah.
Which is kinda crazy.
Yeah. Do you think that that's actually an anomaly or it's like more
No,
common?
no.
You think it happens more?
Clearly, I'm not a salesperson for ZeroG either, and neither are you. And
No.
this again, like, it's still an amazing experience, and there's no way to recreate it otherwise, so, like, totally acknowledge that, but it's
Mhm.
hard for me to believe that only one person gets sick every other flight.
Yeah. Oh, is that what they said? They said
That's what
one
they
person every
told
other?
Jonathan.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a zero G salesman, and I actually really appreciate how, candid and just
Yeah,
straightforward
I
you are
do
'cause,
too.
it's people's money and it's a lot of money, so they should know, upfront what the risks are. If you've got a strong stomach, like, it's great, but if not
We have a special guest,
Okay.
my boyfriend, who was also on the Zero G flight.
Yeah, well, we should get his take too.
Yeah, come over here.
He didn't get sick.
He didn't get sick, and I'm very jealous of that. If you guys want, maybe we can pop up the Zero G video again because we have a new a new point of view.
Yeah.
Any way you can squeeze in
Yeah.
the video?
There we go. Yeah, what was your take? I mean, so we've got 50-50 right now on sick, not sick. You weren't sick. Would you recommend it to others or What are your
I
thoughts?
think there's a lot that goes into it, and I mean, not to extrapolate the question out to a point of not getting an answer, but it kind of depends on what you're looking for, what your expectations are, and how your willingness to spend money and relative to like spending time. So, if you can do it for free, you should do it. If $15,000 doesn't mean a lot of money to you, then you should do it. But if you're just kind of, what I would say is like the median of the normal American, and you're going to buy one of these tickets and go through the hassle of it, you have to look at it relative to what else you can do. And so $15,000 is a lot of money to do something, to buy a ticket. And is it worth the cost there? And then on top of that, there's a lot of logistical problems. So let's say you live in Washington, like, Washington State. Well, you might have to go to Houston to do this, and then they might cancel it right beforehand. So you
Mm,
better use your more PT, use more PTO, and then hope you can do it in Florida, and hope that you can do it on time, and hope you have nothing else that's also in that time span to where you're going to be able to use your ticket. And so I think it's kind of it becomes one of those ones where it's really hard for me to recommend it, because I kind of think like, what else can you do when most people don't have a ton of free time, they don't have a ton of disposable income. And so if you're kind of within that in that range, I think that I'm more left with one of those things like, take the
mhm.
money and go to Europe, enjoy a vacation that's set,
Yeah.
what it is, and you can do all that stuff.
No, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. I think, like, if the price were, like, closer to, like, 5K or something like that, I'd have a much easier time telling people, like, "Yes, like,
Well, and we
totally
were
worth
talking
it," but
about, like, it
yeah.
would be great if they could have access to more people, but I'm like, they don't have the resources. They already have trouble getting the FAA airspace. They already have trouble getting pilots. So I don't even, there's no motivation for them, I don't think, to lower the cost of the flight, because they're already struggling, in my opinion. And
Mhm,
we were told this off the record, that it is very hard to work with the FAA and to keep the pilots also in rotation.
I mean, I almost have a little bit of you need to know the finance and elasticity of everybody to kind of figure this out. I almost
mhm,
would have a view that it's a little bit different, like where I think they should keep the prices as high as possible, because I don't think that this is a mass market product. And and that's the thing, is that I didn't get sick on it. So even if you're taking all the risk and everything to do it, and you get sick, and it's not just like you kind of get sick, like it's a really bad experience for the people who did get sick, to where like, I almost come into one of these things where I'm like, would I recommend this to my brother? I would, but I'd be really worried, because if he gets sick, it's like, it's not only is it not worth the money, it's like you're better off not even doing it at all. And
mhm,
so, and it's cool. It definitely is a cool experience. But that's the other thing, is that, and I'm not trying to just naysay it completely and be like a Debbie Downer on it, but it it it's different than how I would imagine. Never been to space. It's different than how I would imagine ZeroG in space would, which is that this is chaotic ZeroG. You can watch the videos, and it's everyone is going all around. It's not like you can sort of sit there and relax and take it in. It's like it immediately starts, and you kind of feel off balance, and it's not very long. And
No.
so it's one of those things too, where I think I would enjoy ZeroG in space more than I would enjoy it in this. And in some ways, I
mhm.
feel like I haven't fully gotten a ZeroG experience.
Well, it was too many people, for one, and I was talking with Pablo earlier. I and a lot of other people in the flight preferred the lunar gravity.
Yeah, I agree.
So it would have been great if we could have had 10 lunars and maybe 3 zeros, or,
Yeah.
it's a
Mhm.
opposite ratio.
But like I kind of get in the sense though, that where like if the thing is the ZeroG, and if they were like advertised as mainly lunar, I don't think people would really want to go on this thing, because a lunar is cool, but it's just I don't think there's a cool enough drive
I
in the
know.
whole thing. And like I said, I'm not trying to be negative about it, but it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for me to think that this is a viable mass market commercial product, more than it is kind of a product for research and development, and the
Mhm.
occasional sort of music video, and people who kind of just want to go on it, just a couple hundred a year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's a very level-headed answer, and I think it's basically where my mind's at too. It's like, I don't know if I could recommend it to everyone, but that being said, like, super grateful to have had the opportunity to go. Like, I think it's like up there with like top, you know, most like, I don't know, like I wouldn't say it's like life changing or anything like that, but it's like if I'm looking back on the highlight reel of my life, it's gonna be up there. You know,
Yeah,
it's like one of those things.
I was saying earlier that my bar was set so high because of, you know, someone telling me it's the greatest feeling in the world aside from falling in love and
Right.
having someone fall back in love with you. And when I'm like actually in ZeroG, I'm like, no, it's not. Like even if I wasn't sick, like that's kind of an overstatement.
Right, for sure. I mean, and that's the thing where it's really hard for me to not recommend something that is something that I will never forget. Like
Yeah.
there's so many days that go by and you don't remember them. You know, I don't know what I was doing Tuesday 200 days ago. You know what I mean? And so it's like, and so to have these events, if you get the opportunity, definitely do it. It's just that kind of cost. It's a cost kind of analysis of it. Of like, if you have that time and you have that vacation time and you have that money, there's some things there's other things you can do that you would also be very that you would like quite a bit, you know, that you would remember for your life. And so I'm very grateful I could do it. And I'm very like, and I will always remember it. But you know, it is one of those ones. It's a tough recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if someone's like a diehard space fan and, you know, they've got, you know, they're retired and they've got money lying around, it's like totally do it. But
Well,
yeah, I think if you're, you know, trying to save up on buying a house or something, and or you're, you know, like most people that are, you know, you got some savings, but you're still like, I don't know if I can say like, hey,
Right.
drop, you know, 10K, 15K on these flights. Yeah.
and just to clarify, we're saying 15K because ours was a little more because we had that private tour of Johnson Space Center
Yep.
with Charlie and Nicole and Doug. So it's not
Yeah.
usually 15K.
How much is it
Yeah.
usually?
10.
It's
Okay.
10K, yeah, on the site. And,
Fuck.
yeah, I mean, I'd say that, like, being able to do it with Charlie and Nicole and Doug and, like, getting to hang out with them, like, throughout, that's definitely, I mean, that's not even, like, I can't put a price on, like, hanging out with Charlie Duke, you know, like, meeting one of the 4 people that's alive that, like, went to
Right, for sure.
the moon. Like,
I felt
that's
like
crazy.
the private tour of Johnson Space Center was actually worth like more. Like
Mm,
not worth more, but I got more out of it. And possibly
yep.
that's just because of how I reacted to the flight. But that was like truly special.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
like
had a very good time when we went to Orlando and did it as like, and that's probably kind of what I recommend. I mean, it's almost nice as like in that Orlando area of like if you're gonna do it because we went to Disney after and we did all that stuff. We're not like huge Disney people, but I can have a good time at Disney if I want to. And so like, you know, if you make like a whole thing about it, if the ticket cost of 10,000 isn't much to you, I can see it. But if you're flying out there just for that and that's everything that's getting roped around it, if you're trading PTO from other things, that's where it gets a little bit harder to recommend.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. And yeah, the Houston, I mean, yeah, the Houston Space Center, that was so cool to like, and it wasn't just like going, it was they did like a whole special event for Charlie that was going back to like the mission control where he was, you know, captain of communications on Apollo 11,
Mhm.
and then replayed hit like exactly what he said like the moment they landed, like that, like, and then not only that, but to see all of the other astronauts that were doing their training, like, go up to Charlie and be like, "You are, you know, living legend," like, and seeing their reactions to him just walking around, like, that was pretty wild too. Like, he's just on a whole other, like, level of, I don't know. Yeah, and people wouldn't recognize him walking around on the
Yeah.
street or anything,
And
but
he's
you're
88.
like, yeah. Yeah, just looks like, your regular old grandpa, you know, it's
Yeah.
just like and yeah, and he's just a normal person, but, also, like, yeah, I don't know, like,
Yeah, there's something
it
surreal
yeah.
about it. I wouldn't say I necessarily get like I'm not, you know, even that much of like a space nerd, but like when it comes to like the um there, you know, and I wouldn't say I'm very much like it's starstruck or whatever, but there's something very interesting about like shaking hands with and just being like you were on the moon. There's something very like I don't know. It's almost like you're within the energy of the person, and it's very
Mm,
strange how like it puts into perspective because you know it's not necessarily that he's so larger than life. It is that he is just like such a normal person. You know, you can see them in a grocery store and you wouldn't even notice it. It's like, I don't know, it kind of, I think in a way it makes the moon kind of more tangible in a strange way.
Oh, we got a question from William. Any hope to go into space as a couple? I don't know if we can. Why not?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, well, I think that's the thing though, is you know, I'm very optimistic as far as, yeah, it's like it's a weird feeling because I feel like we're in this area where I realistically think that like we're gonna be able to go into space as space tourists at some point. And so there's a little bit of thing where I think about some of this stuff of like, oh, you can do this Blue Origin flight and whatever, and they're very expensive. And I'm almost not like super worried because I know you weren't picked for the raffle and stuff like that, where it's like, it's okay. Because I think within 20 years, we're going to realistically actually be able to experience that in a much more, I don't know, commercially viable product. And, you know, maybe it's optimistic thinking, but it really, you know, it's almost one of those things I'm starting to get to the point where like, I think I might actually be surprised if I don't go to space in my lifetime, which is really it's a weird thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, I hope that someday it's like just as normal as like taking a flight. Like I think about like the early days of aviation, like people would go out, you know, and travel just to see an airplane, and you know, it'd be this like big event, and you know, you know, the pilots were like everyone, like there were stars, right? But nowadays it's like normal. It's like taking a bus almost. So I kind of hope that space travel does get boring over time and it's just like normal, and you can do point to point travel, and you can get from the United States to Japan in just like an hour and a half. You know, like that would be insane. Like I think people think about like the impact of space travel, like in space, and like, oh, that's gonna be cool that we're gonna go to Mars and the moon, etc., but it's also gonna revolutionize like a bunch of stuff here on Earth. Like if you can get to Japan in like an hour and a half from, you know, San Francisco, then you could, that's the same time it takes to go from San Francisco to Mountain View during rush hour traffic. Like you could commute that. So I think it's just gonna totally like change the world.
Right, completely. I mean, it's like it's like an interesting thing too, because it is like weird, like when you take it in the context of like how much is like taken for granted now. Like just the fact we can get in a car and go 70 miles per hour means we're like traveling faster than basically any human who existed for the first 200,000 years of humanity, except for maybe people in free fall. You know what I mean? So it's like we can do that. And the same thing with like I fall asleep on the plane and like I don't even look out the window, but like these like mind blowing things. I do think it's like space travel will get there, where it's sort of like, oh no, don't look out the window. I'm trying to get sleep here. You know, it's not worth looking at the view.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't just become boring and it's just normal and people are going to the moon all the time or going to Mars, you know, like, oh, you got to go to work, you know, commute sucks. Yeah. But
Wow, well, we've been running pretty long.
yeah.
Are people still listening?
People still, we're just talking to ourselves at this point. Or, yeah, I don't know. Does it say how many people are listening? I can't even see.
I don't know how to view that from here. Someone asked, is $12,000 round trip to Tokyo in first class or ZeroG experience, I guess, being the same price, worth it? No, the trip to Tokyo is way more worth it. Is that what they mean?
Yeah, I think that's what they mean. I mean, yeah.
I think they're talking about first class flights, and this is actually a good point. Like a regular first class flight is really expensive, like just as expensive as one of these ZeroG. So there's like class of people that are like really wealthy, but you know, going to ZeroG is just kind of like,
yeah, I think that one's a tough one too, because I think that the for me, it's like if you want to pay for the first class, particularly international, it's almost like you're paying for it to suck less relative to going to ZeroG. You're paying for it to be cool. It's like it's an aversion thing. It's weird. It's like you're buying like an insurance product in a weird way. So I mean, you know, we'll see when we go to Tokyo how we feel about it. But like, you know, that's kind of where I get like there's so many cool places on Earth that I want to see that I'm not super gung ho about like, oh, I just want to do these otherworldly things because I haven't seen enough here, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like Yeah, in terms of like things that you could do that are really awesome, like for $10,000, Zero G might be kind of on your victory lap tour. You know, like you've already done a bunch of really awesome things, and you just kind of want to hit, you know,
Yeah.
that last like milestone. um, yeah.
I met someone on the roof during the first launch, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I took my family and like 8 people," and I'm like, "What?" This is like, "Yeah, it was pretty cool, you know, like no big deal." I'm like, "That's like $80,000, dude. That's crazy."
Yeah. Well, I think that there's some people that are just like wealthy beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
And it's like I guess yeah, it's funny to think sometimes like in terms of like magnitude of wealth, like that $10,000 flight is like the equivalent of like 5 cents for Elon Musk or
Yeah.
less, you know. It's like
Well, and you think about like traveling to Orlando and like a day at Disney is like, I don't know, so $500, which is I think the annual median income for someone in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's like it kind of depends on what framework you're looking at it, because there'd be like a one day at Disney is going to cost that much. It's like depends on where you are and exactly how like culturally accustomed to it, as I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the only thing for me though when it comes to like MoonDAO doing these flights is that like we're trying to open up access to more people and kind of like democratize space a little bit. And so it is tough for me to go like, okay, yeah, we're doing this big flight with like 30 people and we're selling 20 of the seats, and only really, only if you can really afford those that price tag can you go. I think it is cool that we do like sweepstakes and that we like vote and send other people to space and we make other opportunities available within the community. And that's like great. Like I think that's the awesome part of it. But yeah, it is hard to like, and it's just I guess coming to terms with like how expensive space is, because this is like pretty much the cheapest way to like have a direct experience of like
For
some
sure.
aspect of space. Like I can't really think of much else. We also do these like LifeShip kits where you can send your DNA to space, so that's like the cheapest way today that you can.
I think you froze.
Oh no. Oh, shit. Oh,
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, so I was just saying that space is expensive basically, and yeah, I mean we've got the LifeShip kits, and that's also like one of the cheapest like things you can do to like get a part of you, a microscopic part of you on a spaceship. But I don't know. Yeah.
well, don't
Shit's
they
expensive.
also have like the ashes in space? Isn't
Yeah.
that a thing right now?
Yeah, LifeShip also does that too. You can send like ashes to the moon.
But was that part of the payload on Vulcan?
It was. So yeah, they were on the intuitive machines, although that one did not have DNA. I think that one only had, it was like a seed bank, I think. So they've got a bunch of different missions with LifeShip. It's pretty cool. They're doing some interesting stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like there's not that many consumer friendly things in space right now. Like there are not that many like things that are broadly available or accessible to people, and that's starting to change. But right now I mean, I can really only name ZeroG and LifeShip in terms of like this is something that anyone can buy right now with a credit card.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. It's like I kind of draw a blank when I think about that kind of like middle step there. It's like it's either crazy in the like Blue Origin realm, or it's like you just have a few little intermediaries right there.
I do have more interest in like scuba diving now, though.
Yeah,
But that
scuba
also
diving
is
is awesome.
scary for different reasons.
Well, there's an interesting aspect to like the whole scuba diving thing too, which is like I'm very afraid of scuba diving, but it is like I think it's like I don't know. I just have this feeling where it's like I feel like it's gonna be the closest I'm gonna get to seeing aliens in a way. It's like you see like the bottom of the ocean, and it is like that is like a different world, and it is
Yeah.
something you're completely unaccustomed to, and so it's it's an interesting thing, but that is one of those things that scares the hell out of me too, though.
Yeah, I have a friend that was saying that we should have, just like we have SpaceX, we need OceanX,
Yeah.
like because some insane amount of the ocean hasn't been explored. Like I forget what the figure is, but it's like 70%, or I don't know. I'm making that up. I don't know if that's the right number, but like, yeah, and there are literal aliens like in the abyss of the ocean, like these like mega squid that are like very intelligent and huge, and like you're like they're living in a totally different like they're a totally different branch of the evolutionary tree that is also
Well,
highly intelligent.
you know how they have, you can explore the Titanic ruins, which RIP to Ocean Gate people, but
Mhm.
eventually we'll be able to explore the Starship, ruins if it splashes down properly and doesn't get retrieved. That would be quite an adventure.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I could go into like a whole rabbit hole about like some like I do think that like for example cuttlefish like they have methods of communication that are nonverbal like just through their skin like they can change different colors, and so that's like a more high bandwidth method of communication than what we do, which is really primitive, which is like vibrating the air with strings in our throat.
Mhm.
And so like they're like on a totally different intelligence tree than we are. And so there's I don't know, there's some crazy people out there that have tried to like communicate with animals. Like there's like this guy that tried to communicate with dolphins and was like living with dolphins, and they're doing all this crazy research. I think there's something to that. Like there like those that's what like it will probably be more difficult to communicate with aliens than it is for us to communicate with dolphins.
Right.
Right. So,
Well, and that's what I was talking to you about this, about to Eliana about this yesterday, just like, just whatever conversation. But I was like, I think our kind of view of aliens, at least how we've seen it kind of develop through like pop culture, it's very, very human centric. And so but I think it's like I think you'd far more like if it happened, it would almost be like, it'd be hard to even conceptualize in the sense it would be like, no, communications happening through like ultraviolet light and things like that. Like things where I'm thinking about it wouldn't be like,
yep,
it'd be more akin to like a cuttlefish than they would to like a humanoid bipedal kind of organism. It'd be like
totally.
it'd be so out there. It's like you can't even begin to speculate on it because
Yeah.
it's just not even. It's completely out of this universe kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, Terence McKenna has this quote that's like something it's like life isn't like man, I always butcher it. It's basically it's not just that life can be so crazy that like it's beyond our imagination. It's like that the scope of like living things that are potentially possible are so beyond our like human centric like perception and ability to comprehend or imagine that like there could be even like life forms that are just as common as air, which we kind of take for granted, and we don't even like that could just be around us all the time, and maybe they're
Right.
like microscopic or huge, or like they like even for example like we don't perceive of wi-fi or like any sort of like
Mhm.
electromagnetic communications happening over our heads, but there could be tons of other like stuff that we have no clue about like all the time around us, like like yeah.
I
So
think it's like that same thing where it's almost like, I think Elon Musk is using an example where it's like, it's almost like the like ant trying to conceptualize a human. It's like, no, they're not even close to starting to understand what's going on. It's like, I think
mhm.
there's more of that realm where it's like, it's almost like a computational ability in our heads wouldn't be able to actually grasp what's happening kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So who knows, like aliens are probably like yeah, I think that they're probably way more like the whole Fermi paradox, the idea that like, oh, why don't we have any evidence of aliens? It might just be that we're just too dumb. We're just way too stupid. Like,
Yeah, maybe they don't want to talk to us. We're
yeah, or
losing
maybe they've been trying. They're just constantly trying. They're like, oh my god, why won't these
sight.
stupid like humans listen? Like, we're trying like, hey, you guys are gonna blow yourselves up. Like, please
Or
stop.
yeah, it could be one of those like, what's the uncontacted tribe, the North Aboriginal? Is that what they're called?
Like
Some sort of
Sentinel
aboriginal.
Islands.
Yeah, where it's
Yeah.
just, everyone is like, don't contact them. Don't,
Yeah,
they're
let
good.
them be.
Like that. They're like, no, let humans be. They're
Yeah.
the ones who aren't that very developed, but they have their culture. We'll let them, be what they want to do.
Yeah, or maybe like like every time like we like accidentally commit violence against them every time they're like trying to like communicate with us. Like we think some thought that hurts them, or so they're just like screw these guys.
Well,
They're like
they were Harambe.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
We're getting a little off
Rest
topic.
in peace, Harambe.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's fun to think about all this stuff, but sometimes I think like we just have very little information to go off of, so it's just you get into these like whole speculation rabbit holes where it's like the total like there are just so many things that could potentially be out there, and it becomes very woo woo, and people are just kind of like throwing shit at the wall. So
You're in the
yeah.
Bay Area, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Have you seen Devs? Totally random.
Seen Devs?
Devs? It's a TV show.
No, I haven't.
Okay, you might like it, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like kind of interesting because you can kind of like look at where the pop culture is, and like it's both the people making it and then it's the society like accepting it, and like it does seem more like we're in this kind of interesting time where we're like humanity is very interested in like the idea of like time dilation, and like they're more like in like the multiverse with like everything everywhere all at once and stuff like that, and it's kind of interesting because it's like I think that in some ways it's like you can watch this stuff in pop culture, but it's almost like a mirror back at society. So whatever it is, I think that's like, in doing like talking about these ideas, it's like I think that we're sort of identifying more of a final frontier of like sort of like the metaphysical reality of the universe, and like how theory of relativity and how like there's time dilation. It's like that's what's really capturing us relative to the idea of pure, let's say, exploration Star Trek, which is really a lot of stuff going on for sure, and there's a lot of ethical questions in particular, but it was primarily almost like I don't know, exploratory of exploring the exploring out there, which is like you see something like Interstellar, which is like it's exploratory, but it's more playing with the idea of time and relativity. It's like there's something added to that,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of frontiers to explore beyond just like the spatial frontier. Like when we think of like space exploration, it's like you're going to a different XYZ coordinate, but there's like other ways of like messing with time, I guess, and perception and all of that, which is pretty interesting too. But yeah, I don't know. And I think that's where you like get into like the spiritual realm almost. Like that's what like monks and like the Himalayas are doing. They're like meditating and doing all these like crazy mind experiments, and like I feel like we have just as much to learn from them than we do like astronauts.
Yeah.
Well, you should watch Devs because it's in the Silicon Valley area, and it'll really get you thinking.
It's
But that is off topic.
DEVS?
DEVS, yeah. It's on Hulu. It's one season. Nick Offerman, aka Ron Swanson, is in it. But it's really interesting. Kind of deals with like that multiverse determinism ideas.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Devs. Yeah, I've been looking for a new show. So sweet. Cool. Well, we're almost at 2 hours. So yeah, thanks for sticking with us this long. This is really fun though. Yeah. Thanks for doing ZeroG, both of you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Truly.
Yeah, and like you guys, you said this a few times. It was like, oh well, I don't know if we're supposed to say this, or like, oh, like I'm not a salesman for ZeroG and all that. And I think that's like what we wanted to like. That's why we wanted you guys on the flight to give like your own real experience of like what it's like. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. I mean, someone said, would you still go on it again knowing that you got sick? And like, let's be clear, I don't regret going on the flight. I'm very thankful. It was a truly memorable experience, but I just wish that the last part at the end, hadn't happened. But like, it was still one of the coolest things I've ever done, for sure.
If I got a free ticket, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
No question.
But that's also an interesting statement. You did it once, you didn't get sick, you still wouldn't want to pay for it.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's one of those ones too I would do it again for sure, but if I got a free ticket, I think I would almost certainly pass it off to somebody else. Like I am really glad I did it
Yes,
the
I would do
first
that.
time in particular.
Yep.
But like I would like to give it to like my brother or someone else's experience new. I think
Mhm.
that I got, you know, who knows? But I feel like I got 80% of everything I can get out of it just out of my first time going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd probably say the same. Like if I had the opportunity to go again for free, I'd pass it to someone else. Yeah.
I wonder if they're watching us and saying, "My gosh, those people."
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is gonna. I think it only like helps their sales, like honestly, because like yeah, like not many people know that this is like a real opportunity that is
Yeah,
available to them. Like
that you
that's
can
the
pay
feedback I've been getting the most is like,
to
what?
play.
You can pay to do that? Like most people have no clue. So even I think, you know, we're gonna reach some rich people out there that are like bucket list, you know, I'll do it.
Well, I think they should change their branding to like, are you tough enough to handle it? Like, can you resist puking? Like
Yeah.
make it
Are you
like a
ready to go to
challenge.
space?
Make it
Yeah.
like a dare.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like for sure. Like can like some roller coasters have that, right? They're like, can you do the dragster or
Yeah.
whatever? Yeah.
Can you eat this, giant meal in one sitting? Like make it a challenge.
Yeah, can you eat hibachi and blue ice cream and survive the ZeroG experience?
I'm telling you, the person that took my bag must have been like, "What the hell is going on here? This is a Smurf. This isn't a journalist. She's a Smurf."
Mm. The real conspiracy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed this. I know you're probably zero G'd out, but I think for a lot of people it was like very eye-opening to actually see what it's like behind the scenes.
Totally. Yeah. Ryan, I'm getting word we had 2,200 people that are watching, so
What?
Oh, wow.
pretty
On
good.
what?
I don't know, I guess across platforms. Yeah.
Damn. Well, I'm not to brag, but I had 13,000 people watching my Starship coverage.
Wow.
I've never seen numbers like that. So that was pretty nuts. But actually over 2,000 is also pretty nuts. That's
Yeah.
not normal for me either. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Ellie. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank
All
you
right.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Talk soon. Okay.
All right. Oh, we got the outro. Sweet.
Are we still live?
I think so. Okay.